Alright, what's up everybody? This is Ryan and you are watching another episode of live coding. I think this is episode 14, but once again I've completely forgot, and it's not especially important anyways. But yeah, welcome back. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. So let's just kind of get started here as usual. So, if you enjoy what I do and would like to see me do it better, or if you would like to support the WiseAss community in general, then there's a couple ways you can do that. WiseAss has a Google Plus account because we're all into using that all the time, and it's totally not going to disappear very soon. We have a Facebook page, which is a great place to get regular updates on content, especially live stream content. I've got a Twitter page, so that's just typically me sharing valuable links that I find, and also I'll tend to do live stream announcements in the Twitter account as well. And then, likely of most concern to you, is that we have a Slack channel where you can hop on and get help from other developers. As always, the only rule about the Slack channel is don't be an asshole or I will ban you. But like I say, I haven't had any issues with that late, and I'm consistently impressed by how wonderful the programming community is in general. So, yeah. And then obviously you're going to be watching this on YouTube, so please do me a favor, consider subscribing if you haven't already. Hit the like button down below, and yeah, that's basically it. So, let's get set up here. Just adjusting my windows here so that I can see the chat. All the usual stuff I usually try to do before I start streaming, and then I completely forget to. Alright. So, not going to mess around today. Basically, here's what we're looking at for today's itinerary. So, I'm going to ramble a bit about implementing my login feature and some of the things that I did differently than the other features. And we'll see, it might end up kind of biting me in the ass later on, but I'll explain my rationale for doing things a little bit differently. Secondly, we'll be working on implementing the what actually is the view currently. So make sure you there's going to be some explanation as to why I'm using an activity as a view. I can assure you of that, so we'll cover that. And then if we have time, which I don't suspect we will, I'm going to get started implementing a connection manager. And so that's basically just like a service that will, before I even bother asking my remote services for some data or something like that, I plan to just check the connection status of the device first, and then based on that result decide whether to actually ask Firebase for the data. If there's no connection active, then my assumption is that it's more efficient to just stop the request immediately. But one of the things that I have to kind of consider is I do want to implement a feature, for lack of a better word, to basically constantly monitor for network status connections, and if the network is reacquired, to automatically try and acquire the current user from Firebase. So that's going to be an interesting one because I think it's a great use case for using channels or actors in coroutines, but basically the idea is, as opposed to using a coroutine which just asks for some result and then gets it returned, there's certain data sources which are better represented as like a continuous stream of potential values that you can monitor. So I'm piecing together that you can kind of use channels and actors for whatever you want, but I'm kind of piecing it together that the sort of ideal use case for them, the time when you really need something like that is when you have like a data source which is constantly looping. And what's up? We got Joseph from California. I'm not actually that far from you. I'm just up in British Columbia in Canada, but what's up? All right. So, yeah, with that preamble out of the way, let's get to work. So first things first, we're going to discuss the login feature. And I'm imagining that some people are going to be giving me crap. By the way, if you've been following along, you'll know that this application is called Space Notes, and there's a link in the description down below for the open source code. I have been making regular commits to it, but the thing you're looking at now won't be totally included in the latest commit because I'm not done building it, so I'm not going to push some questionable code. But yeah, the thing that we're looking into today is the login feature. So I've been basically advocating for quite a long time to avoid using activities as views. And the reason for that is that they're difficult to test, they're fragile, and it just generally works better in my style of architecture to just really put as little code as possible in activities. Now, one of the things about that is if you have like a very, very simple feature, then it's almost a waste of time to really go crazy with the separation of concerns. And what I mean by that is, in this particular case, we have a login feature. There's only one button other than the back button that the user can press. So in my initial assessment of this feature, I kind of thought, well, why don't we try just using an activity as a view strictly because it's so simple? I'm not saying that all of a sudden I am going to be doing that regularly, but what I am trying to say here is, in the past, I've always really been a bit of an extreme perfectionist when it comes to separation of concerns and all of that stuff. And while I don't regret that to any degree, there is a case for pragmatism. So if my giant separated architecture ends up being just more work than real benefit to it, then that's where I would want to consider maybe not using all of the pieces. Now, don't get me wrong, I still use a logic class. I still don't have much logic in the activity, and I'm still basically following clean architecture. It's just in this case, I don't think I need a view model, so I scratched that. And then it became, well, I could pull the view out into a fragment, but you know, let me get started with my explanation, and I think that will be a better way of discussing my rationale here. So we'll go to login activity. So what's going to end up happening, let me just pull it up here, is we're going to implement on activity result. Let me just grab it. So we're going to be overriding, this is Java, of course, actually, crap. Sorry, I should have copied and pasted from the Kotlin version. Now, why is that showing up like that? We're off to a great start already. Just give me one moment here to pull up the appropriate Firebase code. Auth, Android. This is live coding, so there will be a little bit of mumbling and downtime. Let me just get to where I want to go here. And right off the bat, let's worry about getting a proper onActivity result function here. Okay. Give me Kotlin. I want Kotlin. There we go. So is this actually going to work, or is it... Okay, there we go. We got the proper thing. So I'm going to basically delete all of this crap. I don't really want to worry about that just yet. Anyways, so let's carry on. So basically what's going on is I have this login activity here, and so here's the reason why I decided it's kind of okay to break separation of concerns to some degree in this particular feature. So how I'm going to basically authenticate users is to begin with, we're just going to use the Google sign-in flow. So I'll bring the code over, and then I can explain the code, and that'll be a little easier. Oh crap, I gotta stop grabbing the Java. Let's try that again. Okay, auth, and there we go. And that cannot be a private function, hell no. Okay, so let me just comment this out. So what's going to happen is when the user so I gotta make sure this is clear in my own head. So when the user is logged out currently, then they have to verify, they have to use Google sign-in in order to A, create the Firebase user if necessary, but also B, just to allow authentication to occur. So I don't have passwords. I'm not storing a user password. I'm not really storing a username even. I'm really just using Google's sign-in to set up a currently active user in Firebase auth. So that's mainly just because I want to keep this very simplified, and I don't want to be storing a whole bunch of user details because, as some of you may be aware, just got a message here. Sure, I can try and help you, L4Z. L4Z says, if you have time after the stream, please answer on general if I know the answer, so I will certainly take a look at that. And what's up? I'm going to try and pronounce your name, Raid. Thank you for joining me. Anyways, as I was saying, what's going to happen is we're going to call this method and configure it properly when we need to log the user in. So this is going to take the user to Google's own special little sign-in feature, and if they make it through that process, then the result, if they do it, well, the result in general is going to then return to on activity. I hate it when my stupid mouse does that. I really got to get a new mouse. It randomly sends click signals, so I'll be trying to click and drag and it'll just rearrange things. Anyways, yeah, so the result will pop up in here. Now, I'm not actually going to handle this result in the activity because that would be breaking separation of concerns a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. Instead, I will basically delegate the result to the logic class and let the logic class worry about it. So that's basically the plan there. So why did I choose to use activity in this case for a view when that's something I typically advocate against? Really, it comes down to this. A, the view is very, very simple. It's grown to be more complicated than I initially thought it would be, so I almost kind of regret this decision. But then there's the B, the other reason, which is that this feature is almost entirely dependent on using the Google sign-in flow or Facebook sign-in flow, the various sign-in flows for Firebase. So what I want, so in that case, I need to be able to have access to on-activity result anyway, because that's actually how I will receive the result. If anyone knows of a way to do this in the backend alone, please do let me know. But this appears to be the case. So we have a feature that is just very tightly coupled to activity no matter what. I could obviously just like propagate that to the fragment or whatever, but then I'd have to set up a basically what I'm saying here is I'm trying to find a balance between having a whole bunch of ceremony to set things up and then just, you know, keeping it simple and easy to build. So let me just run through the rest of this feature. So we have login logic. So if you're used to everyone else's names, this would probably be called presenter or controller. I don't really use other people's names so much anymore unless they make sense to me. But that you can pretty much imagine. Oh, sorry, this is a presenter. The view, again, is an activity. And we have auth source, so that's where we're going to be pretty much talking to the backend. I had an interesting little challenge with that because I had to basically hide the I wanted to hide the fact that it was a specific, how can I phrase it, implementation of this Google. Let me open up the extensions KT Android BXT here. I wanted to basically hide the fact that this was a Google sign-in task, I believe it is. It's in login result. Yeah, I wanted to hide this particular class from my domain layer, so I had to create like a wrapper object, which was called request something, create user request, and then it has a generic in here so that we can actually hide the fact that this is a Google sign-in task result. And then this thing, where is it, ends up getting passed to the back end. And then I'm hoping that in the back end I can then pull the task out, and that'll make more sense when I actually get to the when I actually start coding it if we get there. Anyways, so I think I've rambled for enough. So what I'm going to do is just get started sorting out the interface methods which this activity will require. So I'll start by just kind of commenting that out, and we will make our activity implement the view interface. All right. Anyways, hopefully everyone's doing well today, getting lots of coding done. So this is going to extend iLogicContract.view. I'm going to click on the red spot and hit Alt-Enter, implement members, boom. So if you're wondering where all of this crap came from, it came from iLoginContract. I'm really, really loving these contract classes, the way I build them. It helps me organize things really well, and I can kind of go directly, it just works really well with my test-driven development setup. Now, if I go to the login logic test, you'll notice that I've actually already done most of my work with the logic class in terms of test-driven development. So I actually did build this logic class using TDD, and it's almost complete. I just have a couple more edge cases to handle. But basically what we do here is we when I want to test something, I've got the class that I want to test, which is a logic class, login logic. I get all the things it needs to talk to and create mocks out of them. I create test data if I need it, and then I just run different tests, run these little isolated kind of tests to just verify that the logic is calling these particular functions on these particular objects with these particular values if I'm concerned about the specific values. Anyways, let's get to implementing things. So first thing we have set login status. So I'm going to open up activity log, oops, that was not the right key. Activity login. And that'll give you a little preview of what this feature is starting to look like. Not terrible. This will actually be animated, and I'm going to improve the space background to have one that's like a little more nicer looking, for lack of a better technical term. All right. So I just want to make sure that I know the names of these things. So thank you, component tree, for not actually showing me the names of things. There we go. That's kind of silly. Okay. So first thing we have login. So this down here is login status, I believe. So that's header. No, this is header. And this is status display. So in set login status, so I need to, good, I've got the synthetic method imported already. That's perfect. So we go to, what are we doing? LBL login status display dot set text. Where are you complaining? Property. Oh, right. Duh. Text equals text. There we go. So for some of you, I had questions about test-driven development this morning. I'm going to talk at length about it, but one of the topics that came up is what should you test? And one of the benefits of building applications the way I do, where I try and basically put as much of the logic as possible for a given feature, not the entire application, in a single easily testable class, like login logic. And the nice thing about doing that is when you have to go and wire up your view, then I don't actually need to test this with Espresso. Like, yeah, I do need to make sure I'm calling the right thing. I'm not saying don't test with Espresso. This makes sense with the way I build things, which is basically passive view inspired. But what I'm saying here is my views are so simple, I don't actually need to test whether this, you know, I don't need to test whether text view dot text works. Then I would be basically testing to make sure that the Android framework is working appropriately, and you kind of have to just assume that it is. So anyways, just a quick little note. Now if I did have complex logic in this view, that's when I certainly would want to test it, but that's why I don't. Anyway, just a little aside there. So for auth button, this will be btn auth attempt dot text, and this is this this button here. Now I'm going to change its text based on the state of the queries to the backend. So if the user is signed in, I'm going to change it to sign out. If the user is signed out, I'm going to change it to sign in. If there's an error, I'm going to change it to retry. Yeah. Anyways, so show loop animation. So in this case, we're going to say, so I need to set up an animation drawable. So I'm going to pull that from, let's grab it from detail view. Okay. So this will, oh, there we go. That should be adequate. Show loop animation. So we're not going to use that one. This one is IMV. I thought it had something to do with an antenna. What did I call it? IMV satellite. That is not a satellite, Ryan. Jeez. Hello, Paul from Brazil. All right. So this one is going to be, come on, brain, you can do this. I believe in you. This is going to be IMV antenna. Let's just call it IMV antenna animation. Whatever, man. Animation. It's a little more reasonable of a name for it. All right. IMV antenna animation. Why is there two of them? Oh, it did that. Oh, you stupid thing. Okay. It renamed. That's technically my bad, but screw you, Android Studio, for not telling me. Okay. So this one will be IMV antenna animation, but I accidentally just renamed it in the... I renamed the wrong thing. Let's put it that way. So that's going to be annoying to fix. Okay, so this is going to be fragment. Not that annoying, just slightly annoying. Okay, where is this stupid thing? Yeah, so this is not an antenna. This is a satellite. So I gotta go here and say satellite. Okay. And then I have to go into the view, so that'll be node list view. And yeah. This is why I hate working in XML, honestly. Okay, so this one is satellite, right? Yes, IMV satellite. Animation, okay. And instead of, let's just go ahead and okay. Hopefully that fixes that up. That was just a total waste of time. Okay. So anyways, back to reality here. So image URL. So this thing will only ever be the loop. So we will say, what is that thing called? So this drawable is called antenna loop. And that's basically a looping animation for not that. Now I've got a bunch of crap open. Let's just clean that up a little. It's going to be a looping animation for this thing. If you're, I won't be able to demo it, but I'll just show you what the animation will look like. It basically just loops these. So we go full. Well, it goes empty, and then half, and then full. And so when the user is connected, we'll loop the animation to show that they are looping, or connected. Login activity. So I think we can say this, yep. I don't think I need, yeah, I don't need to safe check that one there. Okay. And again, this doesn't look right, so this should be not entirely sure why that would show up. IMV. Yep, okay, we get the drawable, and then we start the loop animation. So I think that's correct there. And then we have another case where we are again going to set the image resource, but this one's not going to be an animation, and it will be passed in. So I, oops, give it image URL there. Okay. Start sign-in flow. So this is our little sign-in method down here. Function, I should say. My Java days are always haunting me. Okay, start sign-in flow. So, I'll worry about that in a moment. start list feature, we can implement that. I really have to set up like a navigator class, and I may actually end up being able to use Android Jetpack's navigation, because I did see that they do have a way in which you can access the constructors of fragments, but unfortunately it might end up being just more of a headache to implement their solution than my solution, so we'll see how that goes. So start list feature, I'm just going to copy and paste that shit. Let's go to note detail, and I'm sure I have that exact function in here. Did I miss it? There we go. I totally missed it. Okay. Oops. Okay, cool. So does anyone have any questions about what I'm doing? I'm happy to think out loud on certain topics. I can't give you super long answers because this isn't my Q&A, but if you have questions about what I'm doing here, I'm more than willing to chat about it. Or we can just, you can just keep listening to me kind of mumble. Whatever you prefer. Okay. So let's sort out this Google sign-in client. Now, I think this is actually going to have to get changed. Well, either I'll have to... So the question becomes, am I only going to use Google sign-in to make this thing work? I think I am going to do that just because I don't want to just arbitrarily make those sorts of things more complicated, because like in a real application I would want to use both Facebook login and Twitter, not just Google, and then I might also want email/password. But in this particular case, this app is basically designed to help people learn, so I think I'm just going to keep it simple and just use the Google sign-in client, because since I'm not actually storing user details or anything, I don't know. I'll probably end up changing it later on though. Got some interesting chat going on here. Yeah, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, y'all are asking questions that I don't think any of you are prepared to hear my answers. And no, that is not an endorsement of anything that was said there. Anyways, let's carry on. So let's figure out this Google sign-in client. How do we create that in the Firebase? Okay. Is that it? I love Google documentation. They always manage to leave like one really vital thing out of their documentation that you need to know. Not always, but most of the time. It really just kind of blows my mind, to be honest. Alright, so you want me to create a Google sign-in client, which is Okay, I think I shouldn't be looking at the Firebase docs. I think I should look at the Google sign-in. Okay, so I need to create a Google sign-in options object. So I'm not yet sure if I'll pull this out into a value or not. For now, I'm just going to keep it local. And of course, it's the guide that actually tells me what to do is in Java. Yes, I want to convert it to Kotlin. Thank you. I'm not going to be requesting email. Let me just zoom in so y'all can see things a little bit clearer. All right. So yeah, just gonna ban a couple people. Let's just... So, we're going to get back to coding in a moment, but I would just like to advise to everyone listening that whether you're from Palestine or you're from an Arabic country or whether you're from Canada like me or whether you're from America or whether you're from China or whether you're from Russia, we are all monkeys in shoes. So I would advise to everyone to not treat other monkeys in shoes differently because we all share the same DNA, more or less. Anyways, this is not a political discussion live stream. So at this point, if you're going to ramble about Israel and Palestine, then I would suggest you go watch Alex Jones or something like that, and you can scream about other things somewhere else. Anyways, that was pretty hilarious. All right. And let's see. Who else? Sorry, we'll get back to coding in a moment. I just have a bunch of dumb people today. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Anyways, back to regular programming. So, we got the Google sign-in options, and then we need to create our client. So how does that get created? So it's going to be Google. So we got GSO, so we say Google signin.getClient. So val Google equals. I like how I offended many people by implying that human beings share the same DNA. Anyways, let's see here. Google sign in client, and what do you need? So I get a full screen the documentation for a minute, so I won't be able to see the chat for a moment here. Okay. So sign in client, so we pass it this and GSO. Can't access. So why can't I see that? That's a little problematic. Okay, so we have our builder, GSO. They don't tell me where to build the Google sign-in client in the Firebase docs. That would be very useful information. Yeah, see, this is the problem. I don't actually want to use Firebase API's sign-in client. I want to use the Google sign-in client. Oh, here we go. Okay, Google sign-in.get client, perhaps? Okay, there we go. All right, back on track to some degree. Okay, anyways, carrying on. Okay, so we got our Google sign-in client. We got, this thing might actually be ready to go. I'm apprehensive about it, but let me just double check one last time that that's what we're looking for. Okay, so we create the Google sign-in options, we create the client, and then we have the sign-in intent. Start the sign-in flow. There we go. Start activity for result. Okay, I think we're good to go there. That, if not, we'll figure that out in the next episode. So, okay, so that's the sign-in flow. Let's figure out, that'll be all the interface methods, and let's go to this thing here. So in this case, we're going to delegate. So this is the thing I gotta figure out. So on activity result occurs just prior to on resume. So I need to be careful about kind of when I'm calling this, but for now, let's just get it implemented. I can play around with where it exists later. So we're not going to even check if it's RC sign in here. So I gotta complain about something just for a moment, because this kind of irritated me. Now, admittedly, like, yeah, if I understood the how can I put it? If I understood start activity for result, if I looked at that documentation, it would have told me. But I was going through the Firebase and Google sign-in docs separately this morning, and they all used this RC sign-in request code. Now, I just wasn't aware of this thing. I thought this was a constant. Like, let me see if I can show you the docs about this. Yeah, I'll just pull the Firebase docs over really quickly. So they all use this RC sign-in request code. Now, I'm gonna complain. I love Firebase, and I really respect the team and the Android team. And whenever I complain about this stuff, please don't interpret this as me like just crapping on people, but as some constructive feedback. They use this RC sign-in request code, which is just a constant. Now, I assumed looking at it that it must be a constant that is defined maybe as part of the activity, or they didn't actually explain here. They tell you like to check the request code, or RC whatever. Where's the on activity result? Yeah. So they tell you use this constant and then check it in here, but they don't in this guide here actually define what RC sign-in is. Now it's just an int constant, but they don't actually mention that anywhere in the documentation that that's what it is. So I spent like 30 minutes this morning just trying to find where this constant is defined in some class. They even use it in, so this is just Google sign-in documentation. This isn't even Firebase specifically. And again, they have this, where is it? I think they have it here. Yeah, again, they have this RC sign-in constant. And I don't believe in here either they explain that this is just a constant. And they don't define it anywhere in this snippet of code. So this is really annoying for someone trying to learn this, because you look at this and you think this needs to be some specific constant value because it hasn't been defined anywhere. And then I was looking around and it's defined as different things, and then I figured out, oh, okay, now I understand what's going on. This is actually just a way to differentiate that the result which pops up in, where's on activity result? It's just a way to make sure that the result that actually pops up in here is the is a sign-in intent kind of. It's just to make sure that we know I'm getting a response for this particular intent. There are limited. I don't know if it ever wouldn't be. I don't think on activity result is arbitrarily called by the system, so I'm not even sure if you were firing multiple intents with different sign-in flows. So maybe if I had Facebook sign-in flow and Twitter sign-in flow, maybe I would want to have like different request codes, and then I could differentiate them that way. But that was not explained in the documentation whatsoever, so that was kind of annoying. Anyways, well, yeah, some of them, I think the Isaiah comments that you have to look at the code. Which one was it? I don't think it was. Yeah, so if I do go in here, that is true. If I hop into sign-in activity, it does show me that it's just some constant. Where is it? I know it's here somewhere. Or is that the wrong? Did I click on the wrong one? And on it, no, that definitely should be it. Okay, I must have clicked on the wrong thing because this is a different class. But yeah, here it's here. But again, they set it to some weird random value. So again, when I looked at this, I'm thinking like, oh, okay, it needs to be 901. So it was just kind of annoying. Anyways, let's get back to coding here. Yeah, on activity result. That's the problem with activities, is they're really they're pretty finicky. Yeah, you really got to play around with the life cycle. All right, well, I'm not going to code for too much longer. We're already approaching the hour-long the hour limit here, but if anyone has any sort of short-ish questions that don't have to do with domestic foreign policy or Israeli foreign policy or Pakistani genealogy, then by all means let me know. That was a pretty hilarious experience early. I do expect to get people talking about really bizarre topics, but it was funny today that all of a sudden we had, I believe, 4 different people giving their inane opinions on things they don't understand very well. So that was quite a special experience. So anyways, yeah, so what I'll do, let me just finish off this on activity result. So I'm going to need to, so this is where the creating the logic class is going to be a little bit of a pain, because I am totally going to be breaking separation of concerns here, but let's just go ahead and do it anyway. So I'm just going to move on create up to the top. Okay, so so for now we'll just hold login logic as its interface login contract.logic, and must be, so that actually needs to be a late init var. And then we'll create it down here. So we say logic. So this is where I'm not happy about doing this. This is where I'm going to need to, I should use the injector. Yeah, I should say injector.provide. I'm not going to use the explicit name of the logic class in the activity here. That would be pretty bad. Okay, so this is going to be, let's open up injector. Yeah, let's do it that way. That's a little more reasonable. This is my handwritten dependency injection implementation here. View will be login activity, login logic. Okay, so you need a dispatcher. You need no view models. I don't plan to have any view models in this thing, because I only ever want the state to be acquired real time in the back end. I don't want shared mutable state whatsoever. Note list adapter, don't need that. View, we need that. I don't think we don't need note sources, we just need auth source. Okay. Do we need to pass anything else in here? I don't think so. So we say injector.provide. Come on, help me out here. I thought injector was an object. Am I insane? Injector is not an object. I am wrong. All right. Let's say this dot application context dot provide login logic. Cool. Okay, so we get the logic, and then down here we say logic dot event, and the event I've already configured is in iLogin contract, and it's the Google sign-in result. So login event dot on on Google sign-in result. And what info do you need? So I'm not sure if I need that, but I do need a login result. So I have to build a login result class. So let's say, just clean this up a little bit here. Okay, so we say login result out of the request code, and so I need to get a task. How do I get the task object? I forget that part. This will be in this version of the documentation. So we say Google sign in. Okay, so yeah, that's what I want there. All right, just gonna pull that off to the side, and we'll say, how can I do this? Google sign in dot get signed in account from intent. We give it the intent data. Why is that complaining? Pourquoi? Okay. What's that all about? Signed an account from intent. Oh, it's getting the wrong thing out of here, so maybe I need to be a little more explicit. So let's say task Google sign-in account. Or it's possible I just gave the wrong... Hold on, did I just give it... So this is returning Google sign-in account, and I think I want to return a result, but that doesn't seem right. Yeah, so this actually needs, so let's go to login result. I won't get, yeah, I won't, so this needs to be Google sign-in account. That's what the issue is. Probably, we'll see. I am learning this as I go, so you'll have to bear with me. Okay, I think that's fine. Okay, so we delegate that to the logic class, and I've already mostly implemented that flow in the logic class. So yeah, that's basically it. All right, well, that'll be all the coding for today. So yeah, I'll stick around for like 2 minutes, and then that'll be it. Yeah, that was a decent session. It's pretty crazy with all the man, people just have really messed up it. If you're just joining the live stream now, it's about to end in a few minutes, but there's a bunch of people who came in wanting to debate topics which just aren't really understood well by the majority of humans. What I mean by that is it appears to be human nature to judge people on their group identities and their racial backgrounds and all of that stuff. And in my particular case, I have worked, I had my first job when I was 12 years old. I've worked in over 5 different hotels. I've probably worked with almost, in total, approaching, I would say, 750 different individuals. Much of my time was spent in kitchens, so I had the pleasure of meeting people from literally all backgrounds, all different kinds of cultures. And the thing that you start to realize is that it's not fair to judge people based on their racial background or their culture or their any of that stuff. You have to judge people based on their actions and their words. And so it's really quite disgusting when I hear people saying just insane generalizations. It just, but that's quite common nowadays. Anyways, we have no further comments, so I will cease my moralizing. And yeah, hopefully that was a decent live coding episode for you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you next week for some Q&A action. So thanks for watching. Do me a favor and hit the like button down below if you didn't already, and or the thumbs down if you want. I'm sure I offended a couple of people, and I have no problems about that. So yeah, that's it. Peace out.